Hello everyone and welcome to 518 Freak Show. My name is Rich. In this video, we're going to take a look at a four-letter word known as mastering. A few days ago, while browsing the Facebook forums, I ran across this. Can someone explain the difference in mixing and mastering in layman's terms? I feel like I'm doing it all in mixing, specifically with a master bus, where I'm applying EQ, effects, etc. to everything. I thought that was a great question, and since my obnoxiously lengthy answer got quite a bit of positive feedback, I decided to share my take on the whole subject in a video. Quick disclaimer, this is not meant to be a tutorial on mastering. This is simply a quick demonstration of a completely different mindset, skill set, and approach one might take to mastering as opposed to mixing. Step 1. Reference track. I begin my session by importing my reference track. In this case, I wanted the sonic qualities found on the CD Queensryche Operation Mindcrime. Because who the hell wouldn't? I split the reference track off into two aux buses, loaded mid-side encoders in both of them, set one of them to play the mids and the other one to play the sides. I summed the two auxes to a print bus, where I have a meter set to LUFS and a spectrum analyzer set to show the mids and the sides at the same time. From here I can take a look at the overall volume of the mid channel as opposed to the sides, as well as the frequency spectrum of the mids and sides separately. I should point out that the reason I did all this first was so that I could get my ears in tune to the Queensryche mix. Since I had already spent 100 hours or more mixing my own shit, I didn't want to start making biased decisions based on a mix that I already thought was great. Next, I dropped my track into a channel, set up the same mid-side routing as my reference track, and carefully level matched my mids and my sides to my reference track. Now I sat back for a listen, and lo and behold,
I see your picture, yeah, and it's doom and gloom.
A muddy mess of shit. Upon listening, I discovered there was too much guitar in the mid channel, so I actually went back to the mix, opened it up, and spread the guitars out a little bit more using Ozone Imager. I then brought the refined mix back into my mastering session for further mutilation. I dropped match EQs into both auxes, I delivered my reference track to the match EQs, got them close to where they needed to be, tweaked them a little bit by ear, and voila! Still sounded like shit. The match EQs got me the sonic quality I was after, but they left the vocals screaming loud on top of the mix. To combat this, I dropped a TDR Nova right on top of the track, set it to act only on the mid channel, put it in active mode, found the vocal frequency, in this case it was somewhere around 4.2 kilohertz, and knocked his screaming ass right back into the mix where it belonged. Now that I had recklessly pummeled my vocal to death using 10:1 compression, it was time to bring back some clarity and articulation to my singer. I did this by applying a tiny bit of saturation into the side channels. I know this sounds a little counterintuitive because the vocal is mostly in the mid channel, but I didn't want to alter the mid channel, and surprisingly, it worked. The last thing I did was recheck my meters for levels and my spectrum analyzer for tonal balance. I used separate compressors in the mid-side auxes, set them just enough to knock the levels back into their original starting positions, and for tonal balance I used a tilt EQ in the side channels and a bass enhancer in the mid channels. After a few micro adjustments, I was ready for the old A/B test.
I see your picture, yeah, and it's doom and gloom. It's brought by those who refuse your rules.
Now this doesn't exactly stack up to the Queensryche mix, but I didn't really care. It sounds pretty good. A few final thoughts. Looking back at it now, I wish that I had silenced the audience tracks when I went back to the mix to remix the guitars. All this processing made them sound completely unbearable. I mean, like Cheap Trick at Budokan unbearable.
I want you to want me.
But overall, I think that I accomplished my mission. I brought punch and clarity to a somewhat muddy mix, and I was able to reduce the dynamic range, which started off somewhere around 9 to 12 dB, down to about 3 to 4 dB with no noticeable compression. I can now literally crank this mix to within 3 decibels of clipping without a single limiter. That's not a bad place to be in today's DIY digital world.